Hello and welcome. My name is Thomas Kevin Dolan, the author and writer of Little Fag, A Journey of Self-Acceptance and Healing. And today I'm excited to begin section 5, nearly the end of my book. It begins on page 297. The title of the section is Feeling a Sense of Connection. And we'll begin section 5 with chapter 1 on page 298. The title is Breathing Life into My Dream. I loved my grade 1 school teacher. She made me feel special at a time when I didn't feel much of anything. We were having a class show and tell with so many family secrets to keep. I usually kept my mouth shut. This time was different. I had something I wanted to share, something so exotically different that it felt bold to say the words aloud. I dreamed of living in Hawaii. I shared this dream with my class. I was so proud of myself. I went home and told Mom about what I'd said in class. She wasn't the least bit interested. I didn't mention Hawaii to her again. What I braved. I love remembering my grade 1 school teacher, Mrs. Lamb. Every morning, she would sing this to us. Good morning to you, good morning to you. We're all in our places with bright, shiny faces. And this is the way to start a new day. She made me feel special. I have many teachers who changed the course of my life. My grade 1 teacher did it with such grace, love, and wisdom. She did it with such simplicity, considering the times in 1964. I had little to be proud of in my elementary school days, and what I wanted to share about my family during show and tell was strictly off limits. I already knew I was not supposed to share family secrets. I've wondered how many adults in my life were clueless about the impact of the antics that went on in the Dolan household. Alcoholism, violence, sexual abuse, poverty, and neglect had to have been so evident in my behavior as well of that as my siblings. Yet no one said a word. In the 60s, in the 1960s, they were a time when being a good neighbor meant minding your own business. School became a safe haven for me. I loved being there, staying there for lunch, and making sure I took my sweet time walking home after the final school bell rang. The consensus by my family was that school wasn't all that special. No one ever praised my progress. Not once was there any encouragement to do homework. Besides the daily singing, my grade 1 teacher always encouraged us to share our dreams. This was particularly hard for me because there was no one in my family that had any dreams. If anyone did, no one had the courage to share them. With some gentle, loving encouragement and, as I reflect, not 1 ounce of shame, my grade 1 teacher sat fascinated as I shared my dream of living in Hawaii with the class. I knew nothing of Hawaii, and as a child of a welfare family, the last thing I was supposed to have was a dream that one day I'd live anywhere other than where I was. Yet, as I remember the innocence of sharing my dream, what readily comes to my heart is a question Mrs. Lamb had for me. Tommy, what do you imagine the people of Hawaii to be like? Eagerly, I responded, I think they are friendly. They smile a lot. They have no snow to make them cold. And they get to play in the ocean all the time. My classmates laughed. My teacher said, I think you're right. I think they are lovely people. For some odd reason that day, I told my mom about the dream I shared. Her response was simply, oh dear, don't be so stupid. Needless to say, the sharing ended promptly. In junior high, at the same school, a boy named Francisco from Spain joined my class. His parents moved all over the world, and one day during recess, he shared that his family was going to Hawaii for Christmas. He told me he'd bring back a t-shirt for me. I was in awe of him. I had a crush on him and couldn't wait for the school to start after the Christmas break. It was 1971. Sure enough, he brought back a t-shirt with a large Hawaii number 71 emblazoned across the chest. I was in heaven. The response at home wasn't all that enthusiastic. First of all, I was reminded I'd never lived there, and secondly, Everyone laughed because number 71 was a number that did not correspond to any Calgary Stampeder football star my family liked. I don't think I ever wore that t-shirt. My family had no idea that number 71 stood for the year in Hawaii that he visited. My connection to Hawaii grew as I moved on to high school. I made friends with a few people who'd been to Hawaii. In fact, I fell in love with a young man who would go to Hawaii twice a year with his family. He was kind enough to bring me a puka shell necklace. My high school football coach would ask me to watch his condo while he and his wife with a group of friends jetted off to Hawaii. They invited me to watch the Super 8 movies they shot when they returned. The Hawaiian people did smile a lot, and they loved playing in the ocean. It wasn't until my university days that I began to notice this pattern of being surrounded by the energy of Hawaii. Yet I was still too unconscious to get a sense of what I was setting myself up for. In 1984, I finally made it to Maui, Hawaii. It was my honeymoon. It was then I began to feel the island call out to me. I literally felt the pull to live there. Fast forward nearly 9 years. I had come out, and the call from Maui was still incessant. On a scouting trip to Maui in 1993, the island opened up for me, and I was able to spend nearly a year there. In that year, I learned to listen to my intuition. I called my time there while journaling a year of listening. While meditating on the beach one morning in 1995, I heard a whisper to leave the island and go to Vancouver. I knew no one there, but I'd remembered to listen, so off I went. From 1995 to 2015, I built an amazing life in Vancouver. The bounty of people, opportunities, lessons, and love were unimaginable. My time there was balanced with many visits to Hawaii in 2009. And in that year, I chose to close down a consulting business as again, a whisper beckoned me back to Maui. A colleague asked, "So what's waiting for you on Maui?" I responded only with, "There is something there for me." So off I went for a month. On June 5th, having been there for a week, I stopped by Little Beach. I had just finished a long walking meditation I'd been taught by a Buddhist monk. I was tired and laid down for a rest. After what seemed like hours of rest, I was stirred and awakened by an energy directly in front of me. My sleepy eyes opened to the glare of the sunlight off the ocean, and I watched as a man walked gently across my path. I remember thinking, "Oh, I didn't know there was others on the beach." Back to sleep I went. Shortly thereafter, I again felt the same energy, this time to my right. As I turned to look up, I could sense this same man looking down on me. Having lived on the island, I had learned that if my eyes connected with another person's eyes, I was to go over and say aloha. So I did. He introduced himself as Adam, eventually sharing that he was currently living in Honolulu. We had an amazing, heartfelt 20-minute conversation. Just before he departed the beach, saying he was off to celebrate his birthday with friends, he stopped by the towel in the sand I occupied. He shared that he really enjoyed chatting with me. I offered him the phone number to the condo I had rented for a month. This at a time of landlines and few phones, and certainly no cell phones. He gave me a gentle kiss, which surprised me, and off he went. Although it would take over a year and a half before I was ready for a relationship with Adam, that time would be spent learning the gems tucked within a current relationship that I desperately needed to heal. That healing would form a powerful foundation for growth and allow me to see my level of responsibility for the pain I'd caused my former partner. Adam would spend a full day back in Maui with me the following weekend. The time would cement for me a sense of fatefulness, trusting there was a great reason to have met this man. We'd stay connected via email, phone calls, cards, and letter. And at one point, with my continued insistence I was not ready for a relationship, Adam gently shared, "I somehow know I will always be in your life, and for now, friendship is important to me." It was wisdom I felt I could trust. For the next 6 years, I would travel between Vancouver and Honolulu, falling deeper in love with Adam on every trip. On February 20th, 2015, we were married. On August 30th, 2015, I moved to Honolulu. I am now a U.S. citizen. We are blessed to reside in both Honolulu and Vancouver, Canada. What I braved was letting go of listening to my family's rhetoric about having no dreams. Instead, I never stopped listening to the whispers that culminated in having me be in Honolulu today. At this story's epicenter is my elementary school teacher, who kindly held my intention to live in Hawaii. I'm so grateful to Mrs. Lamb. The unlearning. There's an expression in the coaching work I do that I often share with clients. Who is the only person you cannot see when you walk into a room? It's a simple way to illustrate that my role as a coach or accountability partner is to reflect back to the clients the parts of themselves they cannot see. Every person we meet in our lives is a mirror. They enrich us with life lessons, although getting the lesson may not feel all that enriching. Today, living the fantasy of my elementary school childhood, who are my mirrors? I'm divinely blessed to have been gifted with and to have chosen the husband I am proud to walk beside in this life. When I consider the relationship disasters I witnessed growing up, realizing they no longer have an impact on me, I feel grateful knowing I have cut the generational link in the chain that seemed to lead to broken hearts for my family. My heart is profoundly full and divinely healed. My husband reflects back to me a power of mutual reflect, the unwavering support we give to each other, and from that place, we are strengthened to support each other. He continues to encourage me to tell my stories. I feel such grace knowing he is open to me sharing the journey I have been on in my life to heal my family of origin wounds. He mirrors back to me my unconditional acceptance, always reminding me, your stuff is none of my business, yet I'm open to supporting you as you move through it. I've spent considerable energy embracing the family left behind by my older siblings. Most of the Dolan boys abandoned their children and added roadblocks to me engaging them. When I stopped being a victim to those roadblocks, I suddenly had access to what I call the new generation of Dolans. My new family reflects back to me the deep compassion, empathy, forgiveness, and love that I possess. They remind me of my importance in their lives, which only solidifies the importance I must be in my life. I possess, or more graciously stated, I'm honored to treasure a mere handful of deeply entrusted souls who I'm blessed to call my family of choice. These are my dearest friends. I sense they will be with me as I cross the finish line of my life and draw my last breath. These are the people that witnessed me grapple with my own identity, not knowing who I was. They accepted the impact of my being an adult child of an alcoholic and all my dysfunction that came with it. Their biggest gift to me was encouraging me to be my authentic self. They are my treasures. As I continue to progress through my life, I'm still drawing people to me that bear some major significance to who I need to be. These humans are my mirrors. Last girl standing were my younger sister's words as we said goodbye to our sister at the funeral. I had to laugh because I knew the power it had taken my sister to be the last girl standing. She is such a force of life. It was at that moment I realized I'd gone from being the seventh child in the family, what I referenced as lucky number 7, when asked where out of 10 kids did I land the birth order. I was now the eldest Dolan child of life. My husband refers to me as the patriarch of the family. The greatest gift when I reflect on all I have braved and all I have unlearned is the relationship I have with my sister. We are both beacons of resilience. We are both survivors and thrivers and are now leaning into the spoils of choosing to thrive in this lifetime. She represents so many aspects of both my light and my dark. We have made such room and have given each other permission to accept the reflections we have for one another. There exists a joy in my heart knowing that all of my sibling relationships, this is the one I cherish the most. My journey to her had me choose to let go of the fatigue of trying, isolating, and stuffing my feelings. She became, for me, in my lifetime thus far, a reflection of all the ways I have existed, in all my glory and all my demise. Today, I'm blessed to have learned how to judge these relationships, which continue to help me understand myself. These family, friends, and my sister are my biggest gifts and greatest teachers. By becoming adept at accepting this, I now understand that if there is some characteristic of these people that I like or love, it means I have the positive trait in me as well. Similarly, if there is some characteristic of these people I don't like, it means I have that characteristic in me too, but I don't wish to possess that. I'm grateful for the teacher they're being for me, so I can see this. I have such great gratitude for my grade 5 teacher, whom I now sense might have been gay, for suggesting that I surround myself with different people other than my family. He was suggesting new mirrors. As time moves forward, it becomes more challenging to remember the train wreck of a life I had created. Yet I know when I begin to recreate the rejection and abandonment I received as a little boy, I can now notice how vital it is to remember that I do know how to love and affirm myself. The unlearning for me is remembering that my spiritual development is of primary importance to me. And I am no longer alone on this path, transforming with love the negative into a positive, and perceiving other people as teachers is the primary way I evolve spiritually. Whew. Long story. Lots of things to weave through that narrative. And I kind of feel like I nailed it. Even now, as I hear myself read that story, I'm so grateful for the wisdom that I was able to call upon, even as a younger person. And of course, I know and remember the story I shared with you about it being my grandmother, who was praying for me constantly and who was a force for my wellness. I still feel her guidance in my life. So, with the foundation of that love from my grandmother and my ability to not let go of that fantasy I had as a grade 1 child to live in Hawaii, to eventually turn it into an intention to live in Hawaii. And of course, the rest is history. The point I want to make is that my ability, and perhaps your ability, to be conscious creators, manifestors in our lives, really has everything to do with our ability to remember that thought, that fantasy that really lit us up. I can still feel the excitement I had, right, as a little grade 1 student, sharing with the class that one day I'd live in Hawaii. And of course, to be supported by Mrs. Lamb, not supported by my mom. I'm not sure if I ever told my father it was something I wanted to do, but certainly not supported. Remember, she said, "Oh dear, don't be so stupid." So the foundation of being supported by an adult, by a teacher figure in my life, has everything to do with me being here today, which is extraordinary. And as I look out the window and see nothing but ocean, I wondered if the little boy in me, the grade 1er, who did say they love to play in the ocean, and my husband and I love to play in the ocean, can you see the parallel between how clear I was with something that would bring me great choice, that ultimately became a purpose in my life? Not a stated purpose as a grade 1er, but more importantly, how did I want to feel, or what was the fantasy around how it is I would feel if I came here? And everything that I wrote and shared with you is alive and well for me today. So under the umbrella of intention, with spirit, divine, God, whatever you want to call it, and ultimately a foundation of being supported by Mrs. Lamb, it has everything to do with why it is that I'm here today. And of course, if I'd not whispered that in grade 1 and didn't follow through, right, and have that friend in junior high school, Francisco, and then bump into those people in senior high school, and then be asked by a teacher to watch their place when they went to Hawaii, and then watch Hawaii be exactly what I thought it was in grade 1, I wouldn't have left the consulting business. On June the 5th, 2009, I wouldn't have been there to do a walking meditation. I wouldn't have been there as Adam crossed my path. I wouldn't have been there waking up and feeling his energy to my right. I wouldn't have been there to go over and say aloha. I wouldn't have been there for an amazing, respectful 20-minute conversation. And I wouldn't have been there for a return for him a week later for me to discover that this was somebody pretty special. And at the same time, I wouldn't have been there to say no to relationship because I was healing a relationship that I was in and had no interest in convoluting that or pretending that I wasn't. Yeah, I don't know where that wisdom came from, but I'm so grateful that I listened to all of the whispers because they have everything to do with who you hear today and how it is that I actually am blessed and privileged to live both in Honolulu, Hawaii, and Vancouver, British Columbia. So to Mrs. Lamb, who long took her last breath, I kind of raised my hands with terrific gratitude to the spirit of her, because the energy she bestowed to me, on me, and with me has never been lost.